Welcome, welcome everyone to another edition of Business Badassery. I'm Billie Olds, and sitting with me today is the one and only Caleb Jones.
Hi.
Good morning, Caleb.
I always feel like I'm so dark compared to you.
Because I'm a little ray of sunshine.
I know. It's always daytime when we do. It's your morning right there right now, right?
It is. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here in Wisconsin.
It's 8 p.m. at night. Yeah, for me. So yeah, it'll always be nighttime for me and morning for you.
Until we're in Dubai together in a couple of months.
That's right. Then we could just do this sitting down in a room. That'd be cool.
That'll be nice.
This remote crap. Yeah.
It's always fun to hang out in real life. I'm looking forward to that and seeing some of our members.
Yeah.
But today, Caleb, I had a brainstorm and I thought maybe you and I could talk about the top 2 or 3 things that we see most business owners doing wrong. Now that can
business owners never do things wrong. They do things right all the time.
Certainly, I've never made a mistake or a misstep.
You know what's funny? Neither one of us would make any money virtually over the past, whatever years I've been in business. If that were true, if business owners did everything right, you and I don't know what I would do.
I wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
So what comes to your mind first, Caleb? I know what springs into my mind. Mm-hmm. But what comes to you first as one of the biggest mistakes or missteps that business owners make?
I've said this before. I think this is debatable. I don't know if this is the biggest mistake that I've seen, but if it's not, it's probably number 2 where it's up there, is they don't market enough. And that's a general statement that takes many different forms. It could be that they don't do more of what they're currently doing, or in many cases, they don't market at all. They just rely on whatever it is that got them to wherever they are, like word of mouth or their name in the industry or whatever. They don't really. And this includes businesses that have that have sales problems, that are going out of business because they don't have enough customers. Why don't you market more? And they don't want to. Or they feel a thing about it. Yeah. So I think that's probably the biggest problem, is that the biggest reason companies go out of business is cash flow. They don't have the cash flow. And the number one reason they don't have cash flow is they're not marketing enough.
Yeah, I disagree with you there a little bit. Okay. I think the biggest problem is that most companies never operationalize. So they never go through their end-to-end processes and put in place systems, automations, revising those systems, improving them, reducing their labor costs. Most people think, hey, we're going to hire someone new. This is a big expense. It's really scary. And we're going to spend 6 months training this person in to see if they fit. No, and no.
Right.
From my perspective, you should have standard operating procedures and videos that train your staff for every role, every task, every item in your company.
Yep.
The only way you can delegate is if you know what's on the plate in the first place. And then you can start creating a plan. And it reduces your labor costs by, some of my clients, we save them 40 to 60% in their annual labor budget simply because we're systematizing how things work in their operations and communicating.
And to be clear for the listeners, the biggest expense of most companies is payroll, is labor. So if Billie says 40 to 60% reduction in your labor costs, that's damn near 40, 60% of your entire costs. Not quite, but I mean, it's up there. That's a lot of money.
Then all of a sudden you have that money on the table, not only to give to your marketing team to go wild, but you have assets in place that are replicable. You can train in new staff for a fraction of the cost, regardless of the complexity of the role that they're stepping into.
Would you agree?
That's a pet peeve.
Go ahead. I'll finish your thought.
It was a pet peeve of mine. I had one client, and you know who this client is, who said, I come from an operations background. I want you to come in and revamp my whole company, but we are not going to address operations. My business plan says I'm going to operationalize it in 2 years' time. And I was pulling my hair out with this client, thinking, everything you're doing is backward. And I
Well,
can't
did you
search.
know what he meant by I want to redo my company? What did he mean by that? Do you know?
I think he just kind of wanted some magic without having to go through the steps of operationalizing and understanding the roles
Well, I'm
that
sure
the
that's not
different
the
players
only
need to
client you've ever
play.
had who was like that either, right? Because I've had clients like that.
No, I've had a few like that. I think that's the worst case I've experienced.
Mhm.
Usually, when I start introducing people to SOPs and training them as a client on how to use the tools that I use,
Mhm.
it clicks with them really quickly. And they're like, oh, yeah, we should
Mhm.
standardize and communicate within our company.
Mhm.
There's usually a little bit of resistance, but once you demonstrate some of that time savings in particular, that resistance is much more easily overcome than what you suggest, Caleb, which is expanding a marketing budget when you're feeling a pinch. Both are very valid, in my opinion. But the biggest problem I see, the reason that owners can't step out of their businesses while they're spending 70 hours a week and never seeing their friends or family is
Yeah.
because they simply don't know how to create an organizational structure.
Well, that's where we completely agree. The reason most business owners have no lives and or are totally stressed out, and in many cases, should just go get a job. I've worked, I mean, I'm sure you have too. I've worked with many business owners. They might as well just go get a job. But with the hours they're working and the stress they're doing, why do you even own a business? What's the fucking point? I mean, you can make that literally with income too. I've met guys and gals who had their own companies, and they were based on the hours they were working and the per hour net pay they received. If you deduct all the expenses and all the BS, you might as well go get a job. You can probably make more money getting a job, working your 60 hours a week and stressing out and being pissed off all the time. You might as well get a job. So the number one reason for that is exactly what you are saying. Absolutely. Is they don't, and my consulting practice is based in internal operations, just like yours, not just like yours, but similar to, it's in the same space. Totally agree. I think the difference between when the biggest problem is marketing and when the biggest problem is operations is where the company is at the moment. The companies go through cycles and seasons just like human beings do. And there are times where you shouldn't expand. You need to optimize first. So let me give you an overview, and some of you are familiar with my content, may know some of this, maybe not. I haven't talked about this in a while. You've different. I talk about the different phases. So first you have the start of the launching phase, the startup phase, where you go from zero to some kind of income. Then you have the maintenance phase where you just kind of write it out. Then you have an optimization phase where you're doing what you're talking about. And then you have a scaling phase. You don't want to, and I've said this a lot, you don't want to scale a business until you get really organized with your operations. You want to get your operations done first, and then you scale. So there are companies who, I'm trying to think of specific examples. I have a few in my head. There are companies where they reach a stagnation point where they do need to expand.
Mm-hmm.
And there are companies that have expanded too quickly and they need to operationalize. And there are companies that are new who spend a little too much time, especially if they're run by guys like me, nerdy INTJ guys like me, who spend too much time operationalizing when they're not even making any money yet. I've worked with startups and they're spending thousands of dollars on office expenses and office systems and office this and office that, and they're not making literally any money. Go make some money. So, and that should be your focus, then operationalize, then scale, something like that. I don't know exactly when those phases kick in, depends on the company. So I think it depends on where the company is in terms of whether or not their biggest problem is operationalizing or scaling. Because I've seen companies that operationally were fine, but they needed to hire more salespeople. And I've seen more companies, so maybe you are right, more companies that had decent sales, but their operations were a mess. But the reason I've talked about why marketing is the most important function is because I've seen companies, most Fortune 500 companies like this, their operations are a goddamn mess, but they have so much market share, they market so much, they still make a profit in the year. Now they could be making many times their profit had they operationalized, but they're able to stay in business because they're marketing so much. The reverse is not true. I've never seen a business that had perfect operations and really shitty marketing and they were able to survive because they weren't making enough money.
For me, it depends. I've seen both sides of that coin very readily. And I'm a good example of that, Caleb. You're out there, you're very public facing, but I've always been, the wizard behind the curtain who makes other people look good. So changing those, we're offering very, very compatible services from the.
But you've never had a
end of the
problem
spectrum.
getting new
But
clients. You're very in demand.
I'm
And you
very
always have
highly in
been.
demand.
Right.
I've never advertised. I've never marketed.
Because you never needed to.
Exactly. However, I don't want to be involved as much in the day to day, and I've been slowly dialing back as you
Right.
have, Caleb.
Right. Right.
And so operationalizing becomes more important. I can't step away from my various businesses or my
Mhm.
various clients without having a strong operational system in place that allows me as the owner to not be involved. So they go hand in hand. I've definitely seen companies that had great operations and maybe we're working on a smaller scale and they're making money hand over fist, but they're not going to expand. They're not going to be able to scale past a certain point. And that point is different depending on the industry and the client, right?
Well, why aren't they able to scale? Because their operations, or because they choose not to?
Because they're either because they choose not to, or because their operations are limited by having not brought in additional staffing.
Oh, okay.
That's the trap a lot of entrepreneurs fall into, is I just have to do it all myself.
Yeah. Yes.
And it certainly isn't the case. But I've seen this happen where there's stagnation at companies, regardless of whether they're at 200,000 a year or making 30 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
If the operations aren't there, it does limit you.
True.
So it's a nice sort of relationship you and I have built that we give to our clients, because I'm the geek of the century for operations and you're a geek for marketing. So between the two of us, we're sort of like super nerds come together.
What's funny is that, and tell me if you agree, I've seen this happen a lot. I have made this mistake more than once. And I was talking to two other guys who own businesses similar to mine, and we were all talking about this, where most small businesses that are successful and grow, okay, not the typical little tiny corner store or the typical stagnating business where I'm just going to make this the rest of my life and retire later. Businesses that are small but grow and are successful and are profitable, they go through two phases over and over again. So they go through a scaling phase, and maybe scaling is the best word, but they go through a growth phase where they're doing well. They're doing great. This is great. Oh my God, this is great. Then their operations are horrible because they grew too fast. So they go, God damn it. So the owner and the management team has to take a year and fix the mess. A year, 6 months, sometimes a year and a half. And they fix the mess. They go, okay, we're good. And then they scale again. And they get success and they make more money again. They go, this is great. And then they do it again. Oh God, we got to fix the mess again. So they go back and fix the mess. and they were talking about business. What's that?
It keeps you and I in business, but it's not great for the entrepreneur.
Right. And I was having a discussion with a few people, and they were saying, so the objective is to minimize the time you have to go back and fix the mess. And I said, now you could also just optimize before you scale and just keep they said, yeah, that's true. And maybe they have a point. That's true conceptually, but in the real world, you're always going to, if you're scaling, if you want to grow, you're always going to grow a little faster than the operations can catch up. So you always have to pause the scaling, go back and fix, then forward, go back and fix, forward, go back and fix. You just want to do it for a year or 2 years. That's awful. It's pain. Do it for maybe a few months and do it for a few little minor items instead of paralyzing the entire company. Yeah, it was an interesting discussion. Yeah. That's exactly what I thought of when you were talking just a minute ago. You remind me of that.
It is so hard because we don't want to keep throwing people into chaos. And there are ways that we can remedy that and save a lot of the attrition in staff, turnover, what have you, that comes from those upheavals of the growth and the reorganization.
Right.
Because you're right. It's like stair steps. We grow a little, we re-op. We grow, we re-op.
Right. And I've had this, you're aware of this. You're in my company. So you're in one of them. You're in my online, my most famous one. I've done this where, and I've seen other companies do this, where the business owner, the entrepreneur is like, let's go do this. All right, we're doing this now. And the team goes, oh God, no. And I go, isn't this great? And the team's like, oh, this has happened several times since you and I have been working together. Not many. It's happened at least twice. And I'm like, yes, this is so great. They're like, oh God, no, this is awful. And this is also very common. We have, they call it the visionary. The entrepreneurial type is the visionary who just wants to all these new ideas and keep pushing forward and conquer. And the staff is like, wait. We need to wait. Yes, that's good. Wait. And so they're trying to, and so you have this constant pull between the visionary growth stuff and the operational, we need to be organized stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think to a degree, some of that's healthy, but I've seen some companies, and I've probably been guilty of this at least once or twice, where it's too much. Yeah. Right. So you have to have this, because you don't want, in my opinion, you don't want a business owner that says, all right, everything's fine. Let's just keep doing what we're doing forever. That's fine. All right, we're totally organized now. Let's just keep doing, that's fine. You don't want that, in my opinion. I mean, I guess you could do that. I made that decision when I started working with you. That was the decision I made. Do I want to just say, this is fine, let's just ride this out? Or do you want to be a visionary and grow and expand and hit new markets and help more people or help more companies and things, right? So you do want this. So you don't want just this guy and no operational pull. You're going to have a fucking mess. And I've seen entrepreneurs who just implode because they do this. I've seen several good people too, good, talented, intelligent, and they destroy their companies because they don't have this aspect. They don't have the operational stuff. And then I've seen other companies on the other side where it's a milquetoast owner or even maybe a group of owners, and the operational people are in charge, and it just stagnates and nothing really happens. And the next recession that comes along, they get wiped out because they weren't dynamic, they weren't changing, they weren't growing with the times. So you want both. Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's a dynamic tug of war that needs to go on, and it's always more exciting to follow the visionary. It's much more exciting to, especially if you come from a sales or a marketing background, it's so much more fun to follow the visionary than it is to think about the operational side.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're the business owner. Like, no, I have this awesome idea. I want to crank with it. Who the hell cares how we deliver? You guys can figure that out. And the point is, nah, we don't want to constantly be building the plane as we're flying it. That's a really hard position to put your staff.
Yes.
And that leads to loss and burnout.
Right.
So,
but you do want to push that plane harder all the time.
Yes.
So both are true. Did you read Steve Jobs' autobiography?
Oh, a million years ago.
He's the ultimate example. He was a nightmare for his team. He was a nightmare. The guy was a nightmare. I listened to the audiobook just recently because I knew bits and pieces. I'm like, God, I thought I was bad. He was awful for this. He was constantly pushing everybody. And they're like, you can't do that. He goes, I don't care. Shut the fuck up. Do it or you're fired. And I remember he was talking about one of the Macintosh designs had like a wooden back. Mm-hmm. And he wanted a certain design. When he looked inside, there was like this railing in the back. He's like, remove that railing from the back. And the designer's like, no one sees that. It's inside. And we don't allow people to open Macintosh, not like PCs. So no one will see it. He goes, I don't care. Steve, do you understand? Do you know how many millions of dollars it'll cost to change? No one will see it. It's inside the unit. I don't care. It doesn't look good. And that's how he was. So yeah, geez.
Well, my understanding is Elon is very similar. A friend of mine, Stuart, worked there for years, and they came to many unpleasant conversations where he wanted to push the self-driving car initiatives much more quickly than the engineering team said was safe or plausible. So we see that dynamic playing out in all sorts of industries around us every day. It's great to have awareness for them and to understand what the interplay is so that you can address those problems as early as possible in your business and whether you're starting out or whether you're scaling or whether you're reorganizing because you need to pivot based on what the current market is asking for. I think, though, Caleb, that the third issue for me has always been labor. The thing that most people do wrong is hiring their staff.
Oh, hell yeah. I agree 100%.
You were going to add something before I interrupted you. Do you want me to circle back?
I was just going to repeat myself that you want both sides. In my opinion, you want a visionary driving owner or president or whoever that person is. You want that, and you want a strong operational side. So that's why that tension is probably healthy, because that means you have both of these things are strong. That's how I view it. But I'm just repeating myself. But yeah.
And I think that dynamic that we have is rather fun because it is a constant push and pull. And we want this, we have the same objectives, right? Grow, keep everyone happy in our outcome independent way. So keep them fulfilled in their careers with a path forward. But we
well, here's the thing. Here's the big but, and then we'll get to your thing, because I want to talk about hiring people. Both sides have to want the other side. So the entrepreneur has to really actually want smooth operations, because some of them don't, or don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. And the operational side have to really want to grow hard. And I've been in companies, I don't think this is true of our company, but I've been in companies where the operational side, they don't want to grow. Why is he doing this? We're fine. What the hell is he doing? They don't want to grow at all. So you want the tug of war, but you want acknowledgement from both sides that both are important. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
True.
I think that's the healthiest.
I think so. I think you're right, Caleb.
Because rarely have I fought you on the operational stuff, have I? Rarely have I really fought you. Right. Sometimes it bugs me, but I acknowledge I need to have this in order to grow.
Exactly that. And when you were ready to take that step, you reached out. And the first thing you did was pull in ups, which was probably the smartest decision you could make so that you could be freed up to grow, not only the company, but your time specifically, so you could do your innovation work, which is so important. But I think you and I do something that I never really realized until the last few years was very unique. When we hire people and we hire freelancers, I don't have any W-2 staff. Caleb, I don't think you do either.
Fuck no. Never. Ooh, I don't know about never, but
freelancers. But here's the thing that we do differently. We invest in our freelancers. These are not, I don't think of a freelancer who's doing admin as a throwaway. Every single person that I hire for myself or my clients, and it doesn't matter what the role is. My goal is that that person can replace me or another key member of staff. So what I'm looking for is growth potential, willingness, desire to learn, people that are going to come into an interview and ask me questions and say, wait, I'm not sure about working for you. Let me interview you a little bit. And what we do is within our companies, offer them a growth trajectory. I never hire somebody for admin with the intent that they're going to remain an administrative assistant. My goal is for them to take over marketing, take over sales, take over ops. I don't care what it is. I want a growth trajectory for that person. And it's something that we discuss at the outset of the relationship. And we revisit it multiple times every single year to make sure that we have the right people plugged in where they want to be and where they feel fulfilled and heard. Caleb, I know that you do the same. Can you talk a little bit about what that has looked like for you since we kind of transitioned to that model in the last few years?
You do that way better than I do. And I say it a little differently than you. You're way better at this. This is where you're strong and I'm weaker. And I like your technique better. So mine is a little more general. And I've said this, and you've heard me say this in meetings. It's the tail end of what you said. And I read this in a book or two years ago, and I went, oh my God, what a perfect idea. This is so simple. It's something, the concept's called right people in the right seats. And it's not you have shitty employees or shitty team members. It's not necessary. Sometimes that's the case, but usually in smaller teams, everybody. And if you have someone who is not performing, it's not that they're shitty or they're bad. It's because you, as the owner or manager, are putting them in the wrong place and you're not listening. Generally speaking, there are exceptions. So that's why I've said more than once, you've heard me say it in our internal meetings, I want, and this is still my objective, I want every key team member, and in a perfect world, every team member, even the ones who aren't in the core team, all the team members are doing the exact work that they really, really like, and they're not doing anything else. And unfortunately, the higher you get in the org chart, even though I don't view an org chart as a pyramid, I view it as a circle. But anyway, the more close you get to the center of the circle, which is where the owner lives, and that gets harder because your hat is bigger, but doesn't matter. As close as you possibly can, you want every person on your team to begin doing exactly what they want. And this is the hard part, nothing they don't like. So if you have Sally and she works in your business and she does 4 things and she really likes one thing, she kind of likes the other thing and she hates the other 2, she shouldn't be doing the other 2 at all. And then you want to work to get to the point where she's not doing the second thing, she's only doing that one thing. Within the structural constraints of your business, every business is different, within your budget, within the number of people on your team. If you have a smaller company, a smaller team, it's going to be harder, obviously, but that should be the constant objective. And that's the objective I always have in the back of my head, is that I want everyone in the company to do exactly, I told you this. Matter of fact, I told you this year. I want you doing what you really like to do and virtually nothing else. That's why I won't go into detail, but there's a certain function that you and I have been wrestling with, having to do with bookkeeping, where you don't like it and I don't like it. And we had someone else do it. And you're like, oh, I just gonna have to do it. I said, well, I don't want you to do it because you don't like it. And you're like, well, but it has to get done. And so fine. So temporarily fine. But so that's what I'm saying is the larger, the higher, the higher you are in the company, that gets a little more difficult, but it's still a doable goal. Mm-hmm. Even for the owner, it's a doable goal. What I should be doing eventually, I've told you this, is I should be doing nothing but creating, for my online companies, I should be doing nothing but creating content. Mm-hmm. Now that's going to be that's going to be a while because there's lots of, I have a big hat.
You've made changes to your business in the last year pretty dramatically.
Right.
So that, it causes a lot of shuffling around. Our staff is shuffling into those new seats that have evolved within the company, et cetera. But it's a really fun time. And rather than that being stressful or anxiety producing for the staff, they're actually excited, because they can understand very clearly what the steps are, what they get to offload, how they can offload it, and they're part of that conversation. It's never just Caleb or myself or Jeff or someone on the leadership team saying, you must do this, and you must do it now, and you must do it this way.
Right, that's the opposite of what I'm saying. Right.
We can't be dictatorial about that. We need to listen to their voices.
We can push them. We can push them in a certain direction. And so again, you're better at this than I am. You've pushed a few people into certain places. And I was like, Billy, why don't you stop pushing? And then it ends up where the person ends up where he wants to be, where you were pushing them. And I went, oh, okay. I guess
I have a weird superpower to be able to just kind of tell what, I don't know. I can just read it. And sometimes, people are lacking confidence in taking a step a different direction. But yes, I think that's the biggest thing that you and I as leaders give to the freelancers that we do hire, is that they know that we're invested in them. We're listening to them, that we want to retain them. We want them to grow with us and be happy. We understand that there's some shit work that all of us have to do that we prefer not, but we minimize it as much as humanly possible.
As much as humanly possible, right.
And we're constantly giving every single individual in the companies a chance to keep stepping upward as they choose. We'll push them gently sometimes. A good example would be Jeff, whom a lot of you have already met, and some will meet soon as he'll be a guest on this podcast. But Jeff is a superstar. And he started in one role and has evolved now twice into completely different roles within the company. But because he's had us there supporting him, pushing him, but in a gentle way, and asking him what he wants and what's resonating with him every few months, we've landed him in a place where he is exceptionally happy, but it looks nothing like what we anticipated.
Right.
When we hired him.
It looks nothing like what we anticipated. Well, how long ago was that? Was that 2 years ago or a year?
It was just over 2 years ago. And it's really just us recognizing what people are saying.
What a difference between back then, between 2 years ago and now. It's a radical difference, but it's exactly what you and I are talking about. He is doing what he likes. He wasn't sure if he was going to like it or not. He loves it and he's really good at it. And we have empirical data that shows he's really good at it. Right. So then good. And that's the model I want to replicate as much as we can throughout the entire company. And that's the model that everyone on the team should have. Everyone on your team should be doing exactly what they like and nothing else. So then the question becomes, well, what if they don't like anything? Well, then they should leave. That's when they should go. If there's nowhere you can slot them where they like it, because that happens too. It hasn't happened in this company. It's happened in my other companies. Sometimes you can't slot them anywhere and you have an honest conversation and say, well, for your best good, for your highest good, you should go work somewhere else. You're limited
I've had
here
that.
because you don't like this.
I've had that conversation with my own staff plenty of times because I'm mercenary about it. I
Yeah.
need to get the best out of people, and the only way I can do that is if I have something that's right for them.
Right. And they're
people
doing
know that
themselves a
I'm-
disservice by staying.
Yes.
You're not hurting them. Often, not often. Well, often that is true. When you fire people, have to do something like that. You're doing, in most cases, you're doing them a service.
It's
Not
the
being an
same as
asshole.
breaking up your relationship. If you're in an unhealthy relationship and you're not fulfilled,
Right.
what the hell are you doing then?
Right.
What are you getting out of that other than putting yourself through torture? And it's really often the same when it comes to changing your staffing or having to let someone go. Emotionally, it feels terrible. I hate doing it.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that my emotions don't matter here. What matters is the way the rest of my staff works together.
Correct.
And that cohesion isn't broken by having some sort of an abscess or an illness in the group that's brought by one person's bad attitude.
Now, you know what? We're not talking about hiring people. You want to talk about that? About hiring?
Yeah,
you said a few things. So you said, you and I just had this discussion. I was asking you how you interview people. You said in an interview, you watch and see if they ask you questions.
I want them to ask me questions, and I'll purposely say things that are a little bit odd or very.
You'll ask weird questions. Give me one of the weird questions you ask. You ask some weird ass questions.
My favorite question that we put to the guys in our membership program, Caleb has a very focused year-long membership. And those guys get a bunch of one-on-one time with Caleb and myself and the coaches. And the first question that I ask of them is, what is something that you do for yourself? And the number of people who go,
I've seen it happen because in the onboarding sessions, so those of you who don't know, on the onboarding sessions for this program, Billy will ask this question. And more often than not, the guys will go, you'll see this delay, like this misfire. And I saw it when you wrote off the questionnaire and you had that question. I thought that when I read it, I'm like, what the fuck is that? What the hell? And your point was, I want you to struggle and I want to leave the question very open-ended, because we get a lot of logical guys like me and they go, what do you mean? Well, you mean in terms of my fitness? You mean in terms of, and your answer is, it doesn't matter in terms of whatever you want. The question's whatever you want. I want to hear your answer. Yeah,
exactly.
That's interesting.
It's very telling because you allow people then, I'm not directing you. You allow people to share their truth in a different way than if you were to say, hey, do you play any team sports? Oh yeah, what team do you play on the base? Or what position do you play on the baseball team? It's a completely different conversation when you open it up and they can say to you, this is what I do for myself because it's important. In my case, I take my dogs to the dog park like 4 days a week. That is something I completely selfishly do for myself so that my dogs and I can have a really fun time. And for me, that encompasses getting out of the house, exercising, interacting with other people and animals. There's a lot that happens in a trip to the dog park. The same as there is when you're reading your anime, if you're writing short fiction, whatever your interest or hobby is, there's a great deal of information that comes if you listen to what, give them a broad opening and then listen to what people give to you.
So what's a bad answer to that question? I'm going to give you my guess answer. A bad answer, like, I watch TV. I hang around and smoke cigarettes and smoke weed and just chill. And
let me ask you this question. This is my other favorite question.
Okay. Oh God.
Yep. You just won $500,000 and a month off of work. What are you doing with your money and time?
Do I have to take a month off work?
What are you doing?
Oh, this is totally open-ended.
Yeah.
It's totally open-ended. Okay. $500,000. Yeah, I can tell you exactly what I would do with that. I would take 2 weeks off and I would go somewhere. I'd probably go to Europe for 2 weeks with my wife. And the latter 2 weeks I would work, but I would work just a few hours a day on the exact projects that I wanted to work on that I felt I haven't been getting around to. And then I would take the $500,000 and I would put half of that back into my companies for Mark to scaling in, to scale my business. The other 250, I would take maybe 40 or 50,000 of that. Let maybe say 40, and I give it to my wife as a gift, and she would be And then I would take the latter, the 200,000 remaining, I'd put it in my investments.
That, friends, that's what I consider a good answer. A bad answer?
Yeah, what's a bad answer?
I'd go down to Mexico for a month and drink with all my buddies. Or, I'd lay on a beach somewhere. I would sit and do this. I would do nothing. These are horrible answers because I want people who have a similar personality to myself in that they're driven to something. I don't care if that's making a model aircraft in your basement, whether that's, baking cookies to hand out to passengers. I don't care what it is, but I want to see that there's something within you that drives you. So I give you the opportunity to show me if you're driven or not. So
write down that question, write down these 2 questions next time you interview people, folks. What is the one thing you do for yourself? And you just won $500,000 tax-free and a month off. What do you do? And then shut up. Just like Billy said, you did something very clever. I said, well, wait a minute. Now I have my own business. What is that? What exactly does it work? Do I have to take a month off? And you kind of went, you were completely non-directive because you wanted to see what I was going to say. Right? Is that right?
That's exactly it.
Right. So if they ask you a question, just put it back in their plate. Don't say anything and let them talk and see what they say. That's really good. And now Billy gave you an example of good answers and bad answers.
Yes. And it's not that we want to put them on the spot or make them uncomfortable. I think that if you go into it with a really open attitude when you're asking these questions.
Even though you will make them uncomfortable. Those are uncomfortable questions. So it's good.
A little bit uncomfortable, but they're searching. And these are questions that people aren't typically asked. Attitude is usually 70% of job performance.
Oh, absolutely. Shit, if not more. Yeah.
So I can train a skill regardless of how intense that skill is. We can find training for skills and bring your skills up to speed. But if you don't have an attitude that's stellar and is up here, you're never going to have a place in our team.
Right. I've worked with, spoken with, and read from entrepreneurs who make a lot more money than me. And they all say, when they talk about this topic across the board, they'd say, I'd rather hire someone with little to no experience or little to no education or whatever, who have a fantastic attitude than someone who is from Harvard or has 10 years of experience who has a mediocre attitude. Now they will admit, now the guy who has less experience is going to take longer to onboard, longer to get going. That might be true, especially if there's a lot of technical aspects of this. We have to train him on and SOPs. That might be I don't care. I'll take him. I'll take 10 of them any day. I've heard this over and over and over again. And I didn't understand it the first time I heard it when I was a kid. Now I completely agree with it. Shit. It's not even close.
That's the other thing, Caleb, is that you and I are open to every person on the staff of our company and those companies that we're consulting being a thought partner. We don't come in and say, I'm the expert and I know everything. I come in and say, hey, I'm pretty good at this and I can help you put the pieces together, but I really need to hear from you. I need your input. You need to be in an environment where you feel safe giving me that information, the criticisms, the ideas that will help make your company better. Because essentially most improvement ideas in a business don't come from the owner. They don't come from the executive team. The improvements, the cost savings, those little tweaks that make such a big difference usually come from your hands-on staff. And usually that's much lower, that can be the mailroom, the admin, the receptionist. Those people are much more in the know than you realize. But in many business hierarchies, they don't count and they're not given a voice. So that's the one thing that we really shake up with all of our clients is every person has to have a voice, or there's no purpose in my coming in and you spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on revamping your business.
Your dog wants food.
It has to start with your attitude toward every person in your employ.
Your dog wants tuna fish.
Apparently, Lindy is just really opinionated about this topic, and I didn't realize she had so much to add.
And he or she, Lindy, girl?
Lindy is a 80-pound girl dog.
Lindy wants love and attention from mama, and she's not getting it because you're staring into a screen. She's getting pissed off. Yes.
Yes, I need to work on soundproofing for my office.
Yeah. No,
It's
I've seen a
fun.
lot of guys do podcasts. Their dog comes in. It's like, God damn, you get out of here. Especially when they do live casting and stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Yep, I have to block the door and everything and give them treats so they shut up.
I have to shut this door in case Pink Firefly's dog, who is upstairs, barks, because it barks every little thing now. Anything that happens in the neighborhood, even if it's 6 blocks away, dog has to bark. Like, all right, great, wonderful.
Yep,
At least it's this
I
big.
feel safe and protected at least. Mine are much bigger.
Yeah, way bigger. Yeah, like people. I know. Jeez.
Exactly. Like they take up the whole bed if I give them the opportunity.
Oh my God. Yeah. My favorite dog thing, not my favorite, one of my favorites is when my kids were little. We're going off a tangent now, but welcome to podcast. When my kids were little, we had a pug dog. Okay. So like that, and my daughter, you'd walk in the middle of the night, my daughter would be asleep and she'd sleep with the dog. And my daughter would be mashed up against the wall. And the pug dog would be laying like this with his arms spread out, like, this is great. And he's so tiny and she's massive against the wall to make sure the dog in a room. And the dog's laying in the middle of the bed and it's tiny like this. Oh, this is great. It's so fantastic. It's great. Love it.
Oh man. Yeah, they keep us warm.
Oh geez. I got a cat. I travel too much.
Yeah, cats can travel. My old cat Harrison went on planes with me on road trips to California.
But that's so dumb. I mean, I'm at a cat on a plane. Shit. I
don't know. It's chicks dig it. Not that
we found a way. By the way, we found a way. We met someone in our neighborhood here in Dubai who are Americans. Believe it or not, that were shocked they were Americans because no Americans here with a dog. And they figured out, they told us the whole system. If you get the dog vaccinated with the titer and stuff in the United States, and within 12 months, also double vaccinated in Dubai, you can take them back and forth and you're fine. They get a dog passport. And you just take them back and forth in US Dubai and you're fine. Well, you just have to revaccinate them every year in both countries, which you have to double vaccinate. Isn't that great? Other than that, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, I helped Caleb with this. It was a big puzzle as they were moving to Dubai last year.
Yes.
What's the best way to get the dog over?
Oh my God.
And part of my prior life was working with horses, and we shipped horses around the world.
Right.
So I happen to have a little background in it. We put our heads together and our superpowers and figured out how to get a dog to Dubai very quickly.
It was a nightmare, but it all worked. It all worked flawlessly too. It all worked. I was shocked. There were no problems. It was right over here. Yeah, it's fine.
I love it when Caleb comes up with these weird things. He's like, "Oh yeah, Billy, would you know how to do that?"
And I always expect the answer to be no. I was like, she's not going to know how to do this, but hey, do you know how to do this? I expect the answer is, well, no, of course not. It's insane. And you go, oh yeah, I used to do that. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you don't do everything. Great. Yeah.
So it's very fun. These aren't things that would normally come up in our work relationship, but we both have such weird esoteric superpowers that we bounce things like this off each other all the time. It's great.
Even when I was asking you about apostilling documents for Five Flag stuff, when I first started talking about that, I said, would you know how to oh yeah, I apostille documents all the time for such, like, oh, of course. Okay, here you go. But apostille these is great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. We have a lot of fun with it. But that's what we want for your business as well. We want that for your life, for your business, and for the staff within your business. We should all be utilizing our superpowers, and we don't get to use them all of the time. But make those spaces for your staff to use their superpowers, to learn what their superpowers are, to learn how they're evolving and growing as they're part of your company and experiencing new things, and leverage that to create a lasting relationship with your staff.
And everyone on your team, when you said superpower, every person on your team, regardless of what they're doing, has at least one. Sometimes they have 2 or 3. Usually they have at least one. And it may not be the one that they're using to help make you money in your business. So and sometimes, to Billy's point, they don't have the confidence to say what it is. You got to pull it out of them. And sometimes the nicer they are, the harder it is to pull it out of them. We have someone on our team and she's wonderful, but she's so nice. When I say, what do you want to do? Oh, I'm fine doing what? No, what do you really? Oh, so sometimes when they're really sweethearts, you got to really pull it out because they always have 1 or sometimes 2. So it's your job to figure out what this is, even if they don't know what it is or they're not willing to discuss it, and then put them where that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. And the other thing is that at the end of the day, when you're hiring freelancers, W-2 employees, at the end of the day, all we give them is money. Think about that. You are working as a business owner to create a lifestyle for yourself. All we give our staff is money, and we expect from them allegiance and longevity of career. These are all the expectations that we put out into the ethos when we're hiring someone. What I'd really encourage everyone to put out into the ethos is help me find people who want to grow with me. I don't need to find the perfect person. I need to find people who are not afraid to make mistakes, who are not afraid of making a suggestion that might not be taken, and who are able to wear different hats or multiple hats. When you open space that way for your team, they will step into it with great enthusiasm. And I can say I've now been working with Caleb for 4.5 years. I've put most of his staff in place over the last few years, and we have lost one person, one graphic designer of our series of, we have several graphic designers. We had one person who's left us. The rest of the staff has been with us since day one. And it's not because they're working full time. It's not because we're paying them hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's because we're invested in listening to them and having them grow with us. So I think that's a great ending point for today, is to encourage you to look for those spaces where you can grow the relationships and grow that engagement within your staff.
Have them grow with you, and people who want to grow. What you said is perfect. Grow with you.
Exactly. Those people will, they really become invested in you. People want to care about the place that they work. They want to care about the people that they work with in most cases, because you spend most of your life there.
Right.
Be mindful of the space that you're creating as you're inviting those people into your world.
We're probably going to get comments asking, well, how do you do that? So maybe we do that in the next podcast. That's actually a good topic for the next podcast. You and I always forget topics. We have these ideas. We'll have to I'll make a note when we're done here. I will make a note of a possible topic for the next podcast or a future podcast. How do you bring that out of people? What are the tactical techniques you use to do that with people who help you? That'd be a good one.
That would be a great topic. We could talk definitely about engagement, which is the key, I think, to keeping labor costs down and to making your life much easier.
Right. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Billie.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I know we went off topic a little bit, but that's to be expected because that's how Caleb and I roll.
So we roll, baby.
Thanks for hanging out, being a business badass with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye, guys. See you next week.